Why? Why is a question that pops up as soon as I click the button. Anything I have to say becomes nothing. And when I'm left alone in silence, there's nothing but voices that echo on with endless strands of thoughts that lead me to winding roads of discovery and insanity. And yet, when I make the presence known, it subsides within my soul, never to be seen, never to be shown. So, why? Why is a question that comes up quite commonly. Is it because we're scared? Is it because we know we have to put on a face and know that the time comes we get cold feet? Or maybe it's just the realization that the thoughts that you have are nothing. They're meaningless, pointless thoughts to have. Some people could act out those thoughts so easily that when they speak, it's like beautiful poetry. Yet for I, it's nothing but a rock being dropped into wherever, gets lost, becomes empty, becomes meaningless. When I'm alone, that rock becomes weightless, flies into the sky, looks majestic, almost bird-like. It's silly, because as soon as I go into this state of mind, where I'm the sinking rock, as soon as I click the red button, it's like I have to try to follow a cohesive path. I try to follow the streams of the river, but to no avail. What is it that I'm trying to say? What is it that I'm trying to do? What is it that I'm trying to ask? Why? Is it because I know that maybe eventually somebody will see this and I want to present a sense of collectiveness? A sense of sophistication, morality, dignity? But if that were the case, why do I acknowledge the atrocities of humanity, the existence, the meaning, the pain and torment we put ourselves through, the sufferings I've been through? Philosophy is nothing but abstract concepts from thoughts that formed within our everyday lives and what we experience, yet at the same time, going into a nihilistic view, all doesn't really matter, does it? Having such thoughts, such ideals of a future or present, if it all just vanishes. But the thing is, to change the view, we're alive. I think the point of philosophy is to teach, to make us try to find a different perspective, a more positive perspective. Nihilism is such a great way to kind of view the world as doom and gloom with nothing to grow or bother doing anything. But I think it teaches us also stagnation and allowing ourselves to be stagnant. Because if we view everything as meaningless and it doesn't matter and everything's hopeless and meaningless, and what is the point? Then we become stuck. We don't try. We don't do. We don't be. And that's the thing, we don't be. We need to be. Because we're here. We're alive. We exist. We are something, not nothing. And so to push past nihilism, you need to understand that even though none of this matters, it still does. Because you are alive. You are existing. You are the one experiencing the moment here and now. So we need to push past it. Existentialism. The talking of our morality and our being helps to expand, to keep us curious, to let us grow more. It can be damning, pondering our own morality and such, but it helps us to grow, change a different perspective, understand fragility, and to push. Thing is, even though I spew this type of conversation right here and right now, I barely know much of any philosophy. Only in quite recent times did I ever pick up a book on Nietzsche's book of Good and Evil. Even then, I barely even read some of it. It's interesting, but at the same time, I also don't understand it well. Is it because I'm uneducated? Or is it because I don't care to really read it? And it sounds like a contradiction because I call it interesting. Interesting. Because it is indeed interesting. It's talking about, with what I could gather, reason. Right. To quickly go on what I mean. We know nothing. And when you know nothing, you realize that there's more to learn. Right. And correct me if I am wrong, but I believe it was one of the things he stated was that those who pretend to know don't really know. And what you don't know nah. I'm gonna end that thought there. For the simple fact that I don't really have much to input. As I said, I don't really understand it that well. Plus, it has been a couple of months since I picked up the book and actually read it, so most of the information has been gone. But still, it was fascinating then. And eventually I'll pick it up again so I could read it, so I could try to learn or understand a different perspective on humanity, I guess you could say. But here and now, maybe somebody more educated in philosophy would be able to better input my own thoughts into a category. Maybe not. I don't know. But what I do know is that my own thoughts are entirely mine and I choose to dictate how they go, per se. What I mean by that is that with moments in my life, with the interactions I have, with what I see, with what I do, I choose to formulate certain thoughts. Of course, there's always influences due to emotions. Emotions are just chemical reactions that cause us to feel certain things. And those can definitely influence thoughts as well. But overall, when the dust settles, it makes it easier to think more clear, to put something in perspective. See, one of the things, especially that I always talk about, is love, because it's always been a big part in my life, and now it's changed to something different. When I was younger, love was the only thing in my mind, the only thing that I thought that I needed to accomplish, really. To find somebody and to have children. That's about it. I didn't really care much of the future of what I wanted to do or anything as such, because love was the only thing that kept playing. It was such a major thing. You see it in movies and TV shows, with the people around you. But eventually, that concept changed. See, when I finally got into my first big, real relationship, right? It was a wonderful time. A time that I always appreciated. And when things got hard, it was the most difficult thing I'd ever gone through. One of them, at least. The hardest part was trying to move on. I state this because, for me, when people talk about love or breakups, or more specifically, it usually seems like most people tend to get over it rather quickly, given a couple months, or a couple of days or weeks, depending on the person. But there's always a few that take much longer. Those are the people that always get the short end of the stick, per se, because nobody wants to keep hearing the same story or same feelings over and over and over and over again. For me, it took me over a year and some, but at the same time it only took me a couple of months. What I mean by that is there was a period where we talked but didn't, interacted but not really, deciding if we did or did not, and it was an on and off type of thing. But that's what made the healing process harder, because both sides cared a lot. Now, to fast forward to now, after this whole ordeal, I'm not rushing. I'm not trying to find the next person to fall in love with. See, before I got with the person I mentioned, I was trying to fix myself before I got into a relationship. And I fixed a good part of me, but in that relationship, eventually, other things came up that I completely ignored or didn't think needed fixing, and it added to the fire of why things couldn't be how they were. And now, after seeing those things, learning to grow, to change perspectives, and to continue to better myself, I feel ready for a relationship, though I don't see myself needing to rush. Because you don't need another person, romantically at least, to enjoy life. It's nice, but it's a luxury to some degree. And I think that's one thing that our society keeps pushing down. You need to be in love, you need to do this, you need to have children, you need to make a family. No. No, you don't. You need to live a life that makes it fulfilling for you. It is okay if you do not want children. It is okay if you want children. That's life. It's okay if you want to marry someone. It's okay if you don't want to marry someone. That's life. It's just the societal expectations that we have on love that consumes us, some more than others, and I was a former. See, I looked for love to fulfill society expectations, but also to fill a void that I was struggling with. But now I do not have that void. Now when a problem arises, I work with it. I work to solve it, to understand. And when I finally find another person, well, I'll be more prepared. I learned a lot through the prior relationship I was in, and I appreciate it. I do feel bad with what I did, but it isn't the end of the world. See, the one thing I want to know is that if you're an individual who learns very well how to read people and their emotions and their reactions, what they might say, what they might do, when you say certain things or do certain things, it's suffocating. And what I mean by that is, well, the actions I took that I do have some regret towards. Was hurting them in the process to make sure things were ended for good. Because I knew if we stayed in the same cycle, we'd only hurt each other more. We'd only drown ourselves. There'd be no way out. But in order to help, in order for things to get better, sometimes you have to be the one to make the hard choice, whether you want to or not. But it doesn't mean to be naive. You still need to ponder the consequences of said actions before you take them. I did. And I'm sure I hurt them a lot. In time, I eventually hurt myself a lot with such actions. But, again, even though I might have some regret to it, I don't regret it 100%. I think it was a necessary call to help them move on and to help me move on. But to continue on with what I was trying to say, I will use it to learn. I know now what to do. I know now how to act, how to react, and to take different approaches. I wish them the best, and I will always say I'm sorry for the actions I took, and I hope they understand. And if they don't, maybe someday they will. Anyways, I wish you a good day, good night, or good evening, and I'll talk later.